wisdom ready to explore. At Jupiter Station, there's always more in store. From galaxies far to the stars so bright, join us on a journey as we...
Good evening, Sector 001. I'm TJ Esnak, your host for the Jupiter Station podcast. And tonight we have a very special guest, quite possibly one of the most prolific Klingons of our time. And coming to us from our studio tonight, please welcome Mary Chieffo. Hi, Mary.
Hello. Good
So
to see
thanks
you.
for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
So I usually start off with having my guests kind of give us a brief bio. So would you mind giving us a bio of who Mary is?
Sure, yeah. Let's see. Well, as you said, I was fortunate enough to play the Klingon L'Rell in Star Trek Discovery, and consequently, give her voice some life on Star Trek Online, and then most recently got to be Kalara for one episode of Lower Deck, so a different female Klingon, which was really fun. So that's my Star Trek bio. On top of just having been a part of Discovery and that being a part of the Star Trek family, being such a big part of my life since that moment, getting to do so many awesome conventions around the world. Beyond that, I would say that I was fortunate enough. I grew up with parents who were also actors, and as a consequence, I've told this on a few different interviews, so some folks may already know this, but I was convinced that everyone was an actor up until around fourth grade. And because I would see my parents dressing up as doctors or lawyers or anything in between. And to me, when I heard that like a classmate's parent was also a doctor or a lawyer, I just thought it was like, oh yeah, and they play pretend and are that thing. And so once it kind of struck me that it was actually a career that my parents worked very hard at, as were the careers of actually being a lawyer and a doctor, etc. I had already very much been in love with storytelling. I went to a Waldorf school in elementary school, which is very kind of alternative learning in many ways, very story-based, very mythology-based. And my best friend Eve and I were already playing imaginary games. And she got a camcorder, I think around third grade, and we just kind of started filming those and making movies, and all very fantasy sci-fi based. We were often sisters who were then told we had magical powers and had adventures after that. And then I got into a musical theater program in middle school that made me kind of more of a full-fledged theater kid. And then I had an amazing high school drama teacher, Josh Adele, who's still there at Campbell Hall, growing up in LA. And that really inspired me to, I was really starting to hone my own craft. Like I was witness to my parents and all that they did as actors. But then I really was building my own community and my own particular passions, what type of theater I wanted to do, which then motivated me to audition for a lot of different conservatories. And I was fortunate enough to get into Juilliard in their drama department out of high school. And I went there for 4 years, and it was a rigorous training program that I'm so grateful for, that couldn't have prepared me better for playing a Klingon, because it was very Shakespeare oriented, very movement oriented, so very language oriented, and a lot of mask work, a lot of just creature sort of things. So then after that, when I about a year or so after I graduated, I was cast in Star Trek, and became Laurel from there, which was a 2-year journey of filming. And then, as I said, the conventions and so forth have just been a part of my life since then. And amongst that, theater is really my lifeblood, my passion. It's something that I've fortunately been able to do a lot of this year. My most recent endeavor, I just finished up before the Thanksgiving holiday. I did a tour of Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, as part of the Old Globe in San Diego, which is where I'm currently based. That we take a condensed version of the play, about an hour and 20 minutes, to schools, community centers, prisons, all sorts of places. It's an incredible endeavor that the Globe does. And I was lucky enough to play Julius Caesar himself, which was awesome. And yeah, it was just an incredible, over like 25 performances in different locations, really bringing the story and the language to all different parts of San Diego. So I'd say that's the kind of SparkNotes version of a lot of what I love about the career I've built as an actor. But I'm sure we'll get into more things after that.
I'm sure. It sounds like you've had a very eventful career thus far.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would say so. Eventful. It feels in a very Klingon way, very Shakespearean way. Everything's kind of epic in scale. I've had, obviously there's day-to-day actor stuff, but I've been fortunate that a lot of the projects and characters I've been able to play are often of a grandiose scale, or they really, have a resonance, which is awesome.
That was exactly the word I was thinking. Actually, was grandiose.
Oh, great.
So growing up, obviously, watching your parents do their thing, and you growing up to do your thing. Did you grow up watching Star Trek?
I somewhat. When was it? In high school was when, for me, the reboot films came out, and I'd always, like I said, loved sci-fi and fantasy. I was a little bit more on the fantasy side with Chronicles of Narnia and Harry Potter and things like that. And I had seen like Star Trek episodes, but when I did see the new film, I just got really ignited by that like ensemble, and as a consequence, my dad said, "Oh, well, we should go back and watch, the original series and the original films." So that's when I started getting more acquainted with the Star Trek world and loving it. And then when I got cast as a Klingon, that was when I really started to dive in. And that's when I say like I don't want to say like a retroactive fan, but like I I wanted to watch every episode that ever existed, and I was like, okay, let's at least parse it down to something somewhat doable before you start filming. And so I just went through all the Klingon episodes, of which there are many. But that really allowed me to be acquainted with all the different series, and I did get particularly sucked into Deep Space Nine, and ended up watching not just Klingon episodes because I wanted to find out what happened when it got more and more serialized. So I would say that even though I didn't grow up with Trek, it was something that I've kind of been able to discover a little bit later in life.
And I'm sure when you told your dad that you got cast in Star Trek, he was beside himself excited.
Yes, he was. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, both my parents were just thrilled, and I think not only because it was Star Trek, but because it was a Klingon, and something that again really catered to the expansiveness of how I like to create characters. So yeah.
So what component of Star Trek do you think speaks to you more, as far as like the genre itself, or is it like the individual tenets that Gene Roddenberry kind of set forth, like infinite diversity and infinite combinations, things like that, or is it more we're going to be better than the sum of our parts?
Well, I mean, both for sure. um, I mean, I do reference IDIC a lot when speaking to Star Trek, especially in even just its continued uh, creation, or the expanse of the worlds, that we're seeing now out of Discovery, how many new shows there are, how many new cast members, and etc. That infinite diversity and infinite combinations is so essential, because I think we have to be able to recognize what Gene Roddenberry set forth with the original series, and how progressive that was, but to not stop there, as we clearly have not. There have been many series since then, but that it's so important that we recognize that there is still infinite diversity for us to put on screen, have behind the scenes, whether it be our writers, directors, producers on the various shows. So you just mentioning that, that is definitely one of the themes that I think I'm the most passionate about, and one that I carry forth in my non-Star Trek endeavors. That is how I want to tackle Shakespeare, specifically. Shakespeare will definitely be coming up, I think, a fair amount here, because not only is it something I've been working on a lot recently, but I do think it has that potential. We have the potential to see a multitude of actors in those characters that can feel like, oh no, they're only supposed to be done one way. And I think that what's wonderful is that there's infinite diversity and infinite combinations in how you can cast a Shakespeare play. Yeah.
And Shakespeare, for certain, that's definitely got a lot of connection to Star Trek, because a lot of the actors, they've done a lot of Star Trek, especially Patrick Stewart. He's done a lot of
Yes,
Shakespeare,
he
but
certainly did.
it carries
He
through
does.
the whole genre.
Yeah, I do think so, and I think that it is. I do think the Klingon plots tend to be very Shakespearean, very Greek, but overall, I think that you just see that it's and obviously, you haven't heard Shakespeare till you've heard it in the original Klingon. There's so many references there, but I do think that those stories, the stories that we see in the various Star Trek series, are very reminiscent of a lot of different Shakespeare stories, because he was borrowing from the Greeks. He was borrowing from the stories that had been told before, these fables, these allegories that I think we as humans just crave so much to kind of understand our own existence.
And kind of circling back for the infinite diversity, when Strange New Worlds did their musical episode, it is my 5-year-old daughter's favorite episode ever.
Oh,
But
wonderful. Yes.
there were so many memes that came out after that, and you'd have the picture of the Klingon commander from the episode. It's got the caption, "You haven't truly enjoyed K-pop till you've heard it in the original Klingon."
Yeah. I
So
love that.
let's be
Yeah.
honest here. Star Trek fans, they can be funny too.
Yes, absolutely. There's not a lack of humor there. And that's something that I've really loved too. Like, speaking of memes and stuff like that, like in being a part of the show, I get to be on set and be a Klingon and be in the intensity of these plots. But then I get to, be at a convention and geek out about the story and joke about moments that happen with my fellow castmates, with the fans. Like, it is it's such a connective tissue, to be able to have such a strong fan base and culture around these shows. It's not just something that you watch and turn off. It's, if you want it to be, it's a very connective, beautiful thing.
I remember going to a convention around here. I'm in Eastern Connecticut, and we had a convention at one of our local casinos, and Terry from Deep Space Nine had gone.
Yeah, terrible.
And I'm in line, and at the time I had one of the Star Trek season 2, season 3 uniforms, and it was like the green medical. And I get through the line, I get to her, I start talking to her, and she stops dead in her chat with me, and she says, "Oh my God, I love your uniform. Oh my God, look, there's deltas on your shoulders. Oh, that is something. Wow, look at that." And she just got so drawn into the costume. So it wasn't even like I was talking to a Trek talent. I was talking to another fan.
Yes. Totally.
And
I think that that's something, yeah. Terry and so many, I mean, I've been so lucky at conventions to meet so many of the actors from different shows who I do think exemplify that so beautifully. And I felt that with the Discovery cast across the board. That was something that, um, it was, we inspired each other in our passion and joy of being on the show, and the appreciation, which of course, from Sonequa, um, I put Sonequa down as she was number one on the call sheet, meaning that, she's our lead, she's our hero. And she really embodied that on and off screen, in every which way. Uh-oh.
okay, I am back.
Hey.
Apparently, I had a momentary internet crash, so
Oh, all
once
good.
you weren't.
It was funny. I said, at first I went, "Are we taking a long pause?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's frozen."
I said the exact same thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
That's always so funny. But yes, I was just I don't the last thing I was saying was just how I appreciated about the Discovery cast and with Sonequa, how much we all really were and are passionate about the show, and what an honor it is to be a part of the franchise.
And it's an amazing franchise. I've gotten a chance to talk to so many of you guys, and everybody says the same thing, that they have such a welcoming fan base. Everybody's so
Hmm.
nice, and a lot of the people I've talked to, they say the same exact things as you, as far as like following the Roddenberry tenets and
Hmm.
IDIC, because it's so crucial, especially as you said earlier, with a lot of what we're seeing now. A lot of that is so crucial because it can get very easy to get kind of wrapped up in the negative.
Hmm.
I'm kind of guilty of that sometimes. But
Yeah.
if we have
I mean,
something positive to look forward to,
hmm.
then we can get through anything, really.
Hmm. Absolutely. I do think that is, what how we keep surviving is living in the hope, and it has to be active, proactive hope for sure. Um, but yeah, ways to sit with the sadness, the despair, the dissatisfaction, but know that there has got to be a way for us as a society to find ways to connect with each other and build a better future.
I mean, even something as simple as like sitting in traffic, that
Yeah.
thought has crossed my head. It's like, you know, I can't wait to get
Hmm.
home so I can beam the heck up and get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
It was such a welcome um, escape, especially when the pandemic first started.
Hmm.
My 5-year old obviously was born like weeks before
Oh
everything
yeah.
shut down.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
was very fortunate to be able to spend 6 months at home with my daughter.
Mm.
Well, that being said, dad getting up in the middle of the night because I look at my wife and say, "No, you've been doing this all day. I'll take a shift."
Mm.
And my
Hmm.
daughter and I would go in and we would flip the TV on, and I'd sit there and I'd rock her and feed her, and we would watch Deep Space Nine. So having that opportunity to get away from what's going on outside was very, very helpful. And I think I've heard a lot of people say that, like, it was very good that like Netflix and Paramount and all those streaming services actually had these shows, because we could go back and watch them in a completely different frame of mind.
Yes.
And like you had mentioned earlier, the serialization of the Deep Space Nine episodes especially was something unheard of at the time, but I got wrapped up in that too. I'm like, well, what's gonna happen next? Like, well, no, we can't just stop the episode there. Like, what's going on now? Especially the Nog episodes where, you know, he beamed down to the OA mission and then lost his leg, came back from hospital, and that entire story arc was exceptional.
Yes, absolutely. I know. And so, like you're saying, speaking to the core of these themes that we love so much in the show.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It froze up for a hot second.
That was great. We're back.
I can switch back and forth between two wireless internets, and like when it starts buffering too long, I'll switch to the different internet, which is a stronger signal, and then it bounces back and forth. So, but basically, I think Star Trek has been a godsend for so many people. I talked with Olivia Youngers last week, and she was a very big 7 of 9 fan, and it helped kind of direct her career path, both as an actress and as a scientist, because she's a biotech scientist. So there's a lot of Star Trek kind of in that, you know, and I'm sure that there are going to be, you know, little girls who watch your character as Laurel and say, you know what? It's like, I know Klingons aren't real, but I want to be strong like her someday.
Yeah.
I honestly think there's a little 5-year-old girl in Eastern Connecticut who might already be there, because she is kind of bossy like a Klingon.
Yeah. Just authoritative. It's all semantics. But I
like
love
she held she held off one day, and I had been practicing Klingon on Duolingo of all things.
Oh yes.
And I had been saying it to myself out loud, and she hauls off and, you know, she says that, it's like Nuk ne shuvapu. Like, what did you just say? And she has this big smile on her face. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's like, you've discovered something that catches Dad's attention. Oh, great.
Well, I do love hearing that on so many levels, because I think one, you know, it was so significant to me when I would see characters that I resonated with, you know, growing up. And there were some, I think, you know, we are certainly, when it comes to female characters, we're getting more and more. Star Trek has always kind of led the charge in that way. And a part of what I love in Deep Space Nine as well is you just get so many between Kira and Dax and so forth, you know. And but I do think there's something really neat. I mean, speaking to both my experience of like literally inhabiting Laurel and being in those prosthetics and being, you know, an alien character, to just, you know, what her plot was and how it has resonated with different people, just being, you know, in, you know, her journey of going from being in the shadows to being Chancellor of the Empire, and all of the conflict there. I do find it interesting that there's something fun in like speaking the language. Like I love hearing of your daughter, like that there's an opportunity for her to like make those sorts of sounds and know that it's like great and exciting, and like that her voice should be seen and heard, and that it's great to get in there with all those you know, sort of stuff. I think that's something that I just hope a lot of young girls can feel totally empowered to do. And if Laurel's a part of that empowerment, that's really, really wonderful.
and I definitely had to give her the safety briefing before we started kindergarten this year. I said, so like you can't speak Klingon at school. You're gonna drown somebody's eyes. And she's like, oh, okay, Dad. I said, like, remember, you're a little girl. You're not a Klingon. Don't take over the classroom.
Yeah.
And then she tells me, Daddy, I'm not Carson. And Carson's her older brother who's
Yeah.
nonverbal autistic. So
Mhm.
when he does speak, it kind of resembles Klingon.
Mm.
And he basically puts his foot down and he acts like a Klingon. So she has to kind of remind me, it's like, Daddy, I'm not Carson. Like,
Yeah.
okay, honey.
But I think that's really, you know, wonderful, as well as like to understand that there are so many different ways in which we can communicate. That language is something that is beyond just words that we can recognize. I mean, I think that that is another big theme of Trek, and it's certainly a big theme for me, is how um, every individual has their own way of processing the world and then expressing themselves within it. And I do think Trek is one of those places that really shows that on screen and allows us all to understand that in our own lives.
And kind of getting back to the dynamic between my daughter and her slightly bigger brother, you know,
Hmm.
when he has his moments where he's dysregulated, she will get
Hmm.
right up in there, and she's like 2 feet tall, but you would think she was like 5 feet tall because she's standing in front of her
Hmm.
brother, and she's raising her voice, but it's like assertive. She's like,
Hmm.
Carson, no, you can't do that, and he'll stop and he'll look at her like, what are you doing telling me not to do that? You're little. What? And I compare it to like a chihuahua barking at a Rottweiler, and the Rottweiler back up
Yeah.
saying, "Whoa, what are you doing?" But she understands that there are different people and people are different.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I I don't know if it's the way I was raised and raising her helping, which has quite a bit of Star Trek in it, or if it's
Hmm.
something she's picked up by watching all these things with me.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's a combination, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but she realizes that there are different people. People are different, and that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that that really is, if we would all embrace that a bit more, I think we would it would be a better place. But we're working at it. We're working at it. And you do. I mean, you look at Star Trek. You look at so many of the stories that are being told across the board right now. I mean, I do think, I'm tying it back to Shakespeare, but like you do see that these themes um, have always been around, because humans are, yeah, for better or for worse, a little redundant in in history. But also, I think we do, there's hopefully a spiral up. Um, but I think our storytelling is just such an important way to allow ourselves to see that.
That is too right. I'm gonna start wrapping it up there, Mary. But is there a are there any charities or causes that are kind of near and dear to your heart?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. um, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've been um there, um, I'm just trying to think. I have been, fortunate to help support the Hollywood Food Coalition with John Billingsley, which I do believe he was on here at one point. Yes.
Yes, yes, he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Kitty and Armin as well, who are dear, and they're big Shakespeare people as well. Um,
Well, Armin's
yeah.
kind of a little Shakespeare people, but still.
Yeah. No, yeah. um, but also, yeah, I know that what Kitty and Frakes and everyone, their the pancreatic cancer, all of the fundraising and awareness that they've brought to that. I mean, Star Trek has luckily brought me closer to a lot of organizations, through getting to know other folks. So I'm a huge support of those, and always grateful to show support to them when they're fundraising. I would say just overall as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, any and all, maybe not all places that put that forward. I can't vouch for all of them, but I have been very grateful to show my support. There's the anywhere locally, if you look at like for an LGBTQ center. There's a wonderful one in LA. I'm currently based in San Diego. There's a wonderful one here. I think just doing that Googling and see what sort of community building they're doing there. Most programs are just wonderful ways to help support youth and seniors and everyone in between. I'm hoping to actually do some more volunteering at the one here in the near future. So I hopefully in the near future I'd be able to say something more specifically. And of course the Trevor Project and so many great places like that. But if you follow me on Instagram, I try and post about those sorts of things. I try and post about whether either if I'm doing a show that folks can see, and or places that I want to help support. I don't do too much personal posting anymore. Just keeping it more career oriented, and then again, if there are causes to be supported, that's what I like to put out in the world, and then leave all the rest to myself.
Perfect. Well, let me wrap up here, and then I will meet you back in the green room, kind of give you some of our housekeeping things, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
On here.
DriveByDoGooders.org is a grassroots 501c3 nonprofit charity serving the homeless of Los Angeles. Their mission is to ensure a bare minimum of support for those in the greatest of need, and do so by bringing hydration and hygiene to the heart of the homeless. Please consider donating, volunteering, or both today.
Goldson,